Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Concordia University's Forest Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event. It's part of Earth Day. There's a whole series of things happening here at Forest Space under the title Mainstreaming Biodiversity, Making Biodiversity a Campus Priority. And we're convening back together. I know there's a lunch happening here, and you should continue to do that and explore in the space, but it's nice to have more of a conversation type moment on title Campus Master Plan Sustainability Features. Learn how Concordia's master plan guides campus biodiversity initiatives. Just to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Forest Space. We are located here on unceded Indigenous lands, Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. We're also running this event as a live stream Zoom meeting. We're not going to do a Q&A because this is more of a conversational moment, but if you do have comments, you can obviously pop those into the chat and we'll do our best to get answers to you. Same with you in the space, just sit back and relax. Okay, it's now my pleasure to hand it over to our host for the conversation, introduce our special guest, Urban Agriculture Biodiversity Coordinator at the Office of Sustainability, Jackie Martin. Jackie, over to you.
Well, thanks, Doug. So yeah, welcome back, everybody, like in the space or online. We're going to move on to the next portion. And this is the last like sitting and listening part. After that, there'll be lots of time for like interacting and talking. What we're going to do here today is we have our guest, Dominique Dumont, who is the Director of Strategic Planning and Development at Concordia. And we're going to discuss the recently completed Campus Master Plan. I felt like this was an important place to start the conversation and talking about biodiversity because the Campus Master Plan lays out the groundwork. It'll be like one of the main reference documents that we'll be looking at to build off of. And so I do want to preface that it is a really, really, really big document. And we're not going to get into all of the details of it. We're not going to do a presentation. We're not going to show you any maps, nothing like that today. But if you want to see all of that, it's online in its totality. So it's easy to find. And I think Doug's going to pop it in the chat for folks who are online. But if you just go to Concordia and write in Campus Master Plan in the search, it'll come right up. Our goal today is to better understand like, what is a campus master plan? Because I didn't know a few years ago. How is it created? And then we're going to look at some of the features that are most relevant to sustainability and biodiversity. So yeah, that's it. So thank you so much, Dominique, for being here. And yeah, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your role?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. Like you said, I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Development at Concordia. So I work in facilities management. And is the mic working?
Okay. Thanks for letting us know. Try that.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. All right.
I have a background in architecture, and I've been working at Concordia for many years now.
In 22 years?
Yes, since 2003.
Yeah.
So always in facilities management. And I'm interested in urban planning as well. So I was very exciting to contribute to this project. So to answer your question, well, I did not work on this alone. There's two people in my team, two facilities planners who worked on this heavily, Rocio Carvaggio Lucena and Nathalie Baudin. Mm-hmm. And we also had the support from UCS, University Communications. They had comms advisors, one person following us through the project. Since it was so long, we had two different comms advisors. So Sylvie Barbaric at the beginning and Daniel Bartlett for the second part. So
great. Yeah.
That's it.
And then sort of like, anyway, really general, if you can frame it for us, what is a campus master plan or a master plan? Like what kinds of things does it talk about? What doesn't it? Yeah, just lay the groundwork for people like me who maybe don't know.
Basically, a master plan is a comprehensive document that presents the campus characteristics related to the built environment. Like it's illustrated with site plans that show the buildings, the exterior spaces that surround the buildings and their characteristics, the pathways within the limits of the campus. And it also defines where the future development of the campus can happen.
Okay.
So it presents development zones. So this is the document in the end that we obtain. It's about more than 80 pages. And it explains also the process, because it took a long time to elaborate this document, and we have consulted with the community also. So there's the reports on the consultation that appear, and all the process. So it's basically it's a framework to plan the future development of the campus, and it describes guiding principles that are there to support the goals and the strategic initiatives of the university. So it will evolve over time, of course. It's a long-term vision, so it's for 10, 15 years. It's also a living document, so it may change over time, and we can adjust it. We can review it in 5 years maybe, and reissue a new scenario.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. That's living document, because like as the university's priorities will change, we're going to have new strategic directions in the next little bit, so you'll be able to go in and update it.
Yeah, let's say there's a new building that we build, we can update that obviously,
okay.
and all the impact that it has on the plan. It doesn't present specific projects. It's not attached to a budget or a timeline of delivering certain things. So that's important, because often people ask us, did you think of integrating this or that in the plan? And it's the guidelines that will help integrate that in future projects. It's not integrated yet.
Got it. So I guess like for me, I know when I first started to understand it, that was a bit tricky. So you see an image and you're like, okay, so this is what's happening. But I think it's the way that I understand it better is that it's more of a compass than it is like route directions, right? Like it's sort of, we want to go in this direction. How we get there is not quite known. Is that accurate?
So it's really a vision. So it'll help us take decisions, but the decisions are not already taken.
Okay.
You know? So it's also a communication tool to share with the city. When we do development, it's going to impact the urban fabric,
of course,
and so the city must be involved right from the start. And they consider, if they were part of the discussion from the beginning, then they can consider it when they review their own regulations,
right?
Urban regulations. So this is what we tried to do. So it was a consultation with the city from the beginning, and consultation with the community also.
Okay.
And experts, and
a lot
so
of
it's
partners.
not, it was not done in our little bubble in our office.
Great. And so this master plan is different than the last one. Like notably, this one is public, right? And so can you tell us a little bit of what the main differences are between the last one and this one?
Yes. So, well, the last one dates from 2001. So, but the campus planning actually started a long time ago, well before the merger of the institutions that created Concordia. Okay. So there was a master plan at Loyola College done by the Jesuits. And there was also another development strategy for Sir George William campus. And
Right.
so we inherit all this historical or this baggage, or this.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so when we talk about, as you know, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Concordia now, this year. So 25 years ago, we were still completing certain transformation of both campuses after the merger.
When was the merger?
The merger was in 74.
Okay.
But in
Yeah.
2001, so there was obviously there was growth, but there was also certain reorganizations, like the sciences were to move at the Loyola campus in the new Richard J. Renaud Science Complex in 2003, which is a huge building that was built with that master aligned with this master plan in 2001. So in 2001 we had this bylaw that was created for the Loyola campus that showed 4 different development projects. The science pavilion was one of them. It was the first one. It was very detailed, and so that plan showed what we would do for new construction. There were 4 projects, and then how this would impact the parking and the landscaping. But that was about it. It didn't talk about much anything else,
Okay.
So
just
it was very restricted.
Architectural plans.
Yeah. So you had a site plan, and you had the number of floors or floor levels for each of the proposed buildings, the area, the function. So it was rigid. And since we only did we were able to do the science complex based on that, but after that we had to do derogations every time we did a new construction, because we proposed projects that were a little bit different than what was in the plan.
So when there's a modification from what you put into the plan to what you're actually ready to break ground on, you got to go back to the city.
We had to ask, we had to review the with derogation. So it was a long process every time for when we built the genomic center, the performance center, and the applied science hub. And at one point the city said, well, your campus master plan really needs to be updated now. We can't work with this anymore. It's becoming too confusing.
Yeah.
So for downtown, it was different. We had also other major projects to like the EV building, the John Molson building, that were major expansions to support growth. And so when we moved the sciences, it triggered all sorts of like a big domino effect of renovations in the older buildings. So I would say that the difference also is that the process of the elaboration process is completely different. Here, this time, we wanted to consider many other dimensions. We really looked at what were the major strategic initiatives that the university was undertaking, and trying to understand how those had an impact on the planning, So obviously sustainability was an essential aspect to consider, which was not part of the master plan originally in 2001. We were not thinking about that then,
Right.
So biodiversity, health, well-being, the identity. Identity was probably a little bit more considered in 2001, but it still is very important for we have 2 campuses in 2 different sectors of the city. So how do you make a connection between the 2? How do you feel at Concordia in both areas? So that's very important for us.
Yeah, and I
it
think
came
like
out.
what you're saying, like with the first one, it was kind of like architectural plans. It's kind of getting a lot of detail, but things always change.
Mhm.
And and that was also like a period of growth where we're not exactly in a period of growth right now.
But when we started the elaboration of the campus master plan, we were trying to say, okay, well, how are we going to grow? It's before the
Right.
pandemic, okay?
Okay.
And if we look at the historical growth, well, in 10 years, we may need 3 buildings like the John Molson building. Okay, where do we put that? But we don't know if we're gonna grow, right? And there's the pandemic that happens, and then there's the hybrid work that happens, and then there's all sorts of different political contexts that affect enrollment. And we in the last 5 years, we didn't grow so much actually, and which is not maybe there's it's very hard to say what's the optimal size of a campus or a university, but so this plan shows the potential to grow on both campuses. It doesn't mean we're going to grow,
right?
But at least we don't have to. We know we don't have to build a third campus somewhere.
That's good.
Like many universities started doing, expanding in different locations.
I guess I want to ask you too, because like something in looking at this, and I feel like, again, this is also different from the previous plan, is that there was a lot of effort put into consultation. Like you had constant consultation with the city, consultation with the neighbors around Concordia, and consultation with the community. And so like, why? You didn't have to. You guys didn't have to choose to do that. So why was it important to do that much consultation, and what were the key things that came out of it?
I think what inspired us to do it this way a little bit was looking at precedents, recent precedents. The University of Montreal developed the Campus 1000, and in 2000 it was just brand new opening, and so we met with people who worked on that, the development of that campus master plan. It was also it was a new district. It was a different situation. It's another location, but we learned from them that if you develop your plan in your own bubble and then you go to the city, you could hit a wall and actually realize that no, the city doesn't want to do that project. They have they have other concerns. So that's one thing that we learned before we started. We really need to have that conversation and understand where the city is going with their vision of how the city will, what are the issues, what are the needs in the urban environment around our campus. Also, if you want to move ahead with a project, you need to make sure that the neighborhood will accept it. So, and if you want to develop a project for your community, you need also to consult your community to understand what are the needs. So the university is so diverse, it's so rich, it's we have over 40,000 students, almost 6,000 or employees.
Yeah.
So there's so much going on, and that we needed to develop this with the community. And we needed to understand there's also all the action plans that were developed in the university. We're not experts in all these fields, so it was important to go to reach out to the leaders of the different action plans and the different experts in the university to learn about what their ideas are and what their goals are, and to see if we could support that as well.
Right.
Or so if there's connections to make,
Yeah. So I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's the 5 filters and there's 5 guiding principles. And so I feel like these came a lot out of the consultations. Like, what are filters and the guiding principles, and like what are some examples?
Some of I'll present the guiding principles and the filters, but I think that already pre-existed a little bit here.
Okay.
It's not like
Yeah.
it came out completely as a surprise. It
Fair
was not
enough.
a surprise.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let me just go
Yeah,
to my
of course.
notes a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
more.
I know I skipped around a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so one of the guiding principles is, for example, dialogue with the city.
Mhm.
So if we were to develop a new building or make a major renovation in a building, especially downtown, I would say this is more relevant. How do we let people know this is a university? Like if you're walking on the sidewalk, how do
Right.
you understand that this is not a commercial space? Actually, this example, the first space where we are in right now is a great showcase on the street where people can see that we're we have exhibits.
They can see our screens.
We have
they
screens.
can see everything we're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
They can sort of, they're invited inside a space where they can learn about what's going on in the university. So this is a perfect example, actually, of how to dialogue with the city. So it's something that we would like to reproduce more. Also within the buildings, there's opportunities to do that. Sometimes we heard a lot of from fine arts in the EV building, for example. There's a lot of corridors that are like very not transparent, and you walk and you don't know what's happening in the laboratories. So if we do renovations, also major renovations, we're not talking about development, we can apply these principles too. It's dialogue. So another example of dialogue with the city is how we connected 5 buildings with the Concordia underground and the metro station. So people who are going to that metro station actually are in contact with the university and the students and the spaces in the university. It's all connected.
Yeah.
Another one of the guiding principles is teaching and research. So for incorporating experiential learning opportunities and living lab concepts. So this could be an example of this could be like collecting information on energy efficiency or energy consumption of our buildings. And so you could have students in engineering, building engineering, who would use that data to do modeling or to do.
So getting the students involved in
the researchers. Yes, the researchers with their students could use certain data on the buildings to do models. So that's an example. Institutional development, so how do we balance the modernization of our buildings with the heritage value of the buildings? So there's at Loyola, for example, if you're familiar with the campus, we have buildings that are over 100 years old that have a lot of value. But at the same time, when they were built, they were state of the art, So we never stop doing that. Whenever we build something, whichever period, we try to be innovative and have do the best kind of project. So the recent projects that we did at Loyola respected the scale of the older buildings and the fact that they're placed around courtyards. So we value the structure of how the original campus was laid out, but at the same time, the new buildings are very modern and very efficient and we applied for LEED certifications for all the new buildings, the recent buildings, for example. So
I'm gonna move us on to more like real specific sustainability stuff because I think
Yeah.
that, well, it's more relevant for my work.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to hear a little bit more about it. And like in the document, there's parts of sustainability all throughout. And like I said, if people want to check it out online, the whole thing is there. There's a few pieces that really stood out to me, and I'd like you to kind of just like let us know where the university's at, where you are at, and what the campus master plan is in terms of like green roofs and rooftop utilization.
Okay. Well, at the moment, we have very little examples of green roofs, but we have some. I can mention the fourth floor of the MB. There's a little roof terrace. There's also the hall building terrace that will be renovated, that is being renovated right now. It's actually a roof. There's a
that's right.
There's a labs, engineering labs underneath actually. So it's not considered. People don't think it's a roof, but it is. And so it'll have some vegetation on it, but it's not really a typical green roof. But it's used for. It'll become more. It's a public space, obviously, for different student activities. But there's green, some green.
Quite a bit in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is proposed. So plants will be planted there this summer. Very exciting. But yeah, so we have a variety of buildings. We have 80 buildings on both campuses. Some of them are small structures and don't have the right structure to bear the load of a green roof.
Right.
But we did an assessment, and we identified some roofs that had the potential of becoming green roofs when the roofs would be when it would be time to replace the roof membranes. It's something that we could implement, because the life cycle of the roof, the life cycle of the roof has to be at the end for us to do this kind of thing on existing buildings.
Okay.
So we identified a couple of buildings, like this building, actually, the library building could be one of the buildings where we could have green roofs and the football. But it's an expense. It costs double of the investment of a regular roof. So there's always the budget constraint.
Right.
So it'll be recommended to do this, but because it has benefits to do this, but at the same time we need to have the available funding for it. So I can't guarantee we're going to do it.
No, but you have already
we identified
base work,
and of course if we do new projects, well we'll it'll have to be studied at least. For certain roofs it's not possible. On the Applied Science Hub we have a huge mechanical penthouse and special chimneys. It was not appropriate to do that.
Right.
But there's all sorts of things to consider on existing roofs. So people think it's easy, but it's not easy. There's to implement. There's safety and access that are key issues. You can't send people on the roof if it's not safe. And accessing the roof, if you don't have an elevator, for example, it becomes very complicated. So in small buildings of 3 floors, we don't have elevators. So how do you take the materials up and the water and so it's something that we would like to build in with new projects. I think that would make more sense, but it doesn't have to be big. And you had a great example actually. I think you're working on a mini green roof on the CJ at Loyola.
Yeah, that's it. Well, and I think that's another thing too, is like a lot of times when people think of a green roof, they think of like an extensive green roof or the whole space is that, but we can take advantage of some of the terraces that we already have, like for smaller gardens on rooftops, and put vegetation in those spaces. Like those are
and they're visible and they're accessible so people can enjoy it actually.
Exactly. I think well, you kind of segued really nice into the piece about urban agriculture. So like in the new plan, there's zones that are in it that are dedicated for urban agriculture. And this was not there before. So what, like, I guess, like, why did you decide that you wanted to have these zones? And maybe a little bit of like the other work that's going on to support them.
I think there was an interest for urban agriculture that was known for a long time, and there were things happening,
Yes.
but it was a little bit disorganized, and we were not sure how to support these activities, you know. So, but it was important to find a way to do that with. So the campus master plan helped us identify like programming the exterior space, actually, because there's a lot of competing activities on the exterior space. We want to be able to have assemblies, sometimes large assemblies, activities outdoors, play sports. There's all sorts of activities. So it was important to balance all that. And we wanted to make sure that some people were not necessarily aware of the existing garden. So we wanted to work with you
yes.
to establish a process to request access to gardens, and maybe some people can gardens, they rely on people, these activities. So if people are leaving, then the garden should be rotating to another group.
Move to someone else.
And give a chance to everybody to have hands-on projects and be in contact with the nature. And so I think we wanted to promote and facilitate access to the gardens, but at the same time, it's not necessarily one more, and there's no limit.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about like programming the exterior space, because like a gardener is going to look at the space and be like, oh, gardens everywhere. About like a forester is going to look out and be like, whoa, what a great spot to plant these trees. And so for me, that's interesting that the campus master plan starts to look at that exterior space, because it was lacking in the last one, this programming of the exterior space, to know, like, somebody has to know what are all the different requests of that as much as possible, right? Like, I don't think I ever expected for the gardens to be sharing a field with somebody who's testing rockets, but like we have Space Concordia here. And so like there's these types of programming, so there's a lot of overlapping requests that maybe aren't obvious. And anyway, I'm going to follow up on that, programming the space, like especially as we move forward talking about biodiversity initiatives, to help us keep in mind all of the requests on that space, right?
But so the urban agriculture was also a fabulous way to create interaction with the community, between the students and the community, and a learning environment as well. So but it wasn't at full potential. I think
we're still working on getting there.
So I think we helped that to support that with the campus master plan.
Definitely. And another, I know we're a little bit over time, but I really don't want to not talk about this, because I know well, there's going to be another conversation, I think, on May 4th, in like 2 weeks, on the pedestrianization of Mackay. And this is something that is in the master plan, but it's also been advocated for by students since I was a student a long time ago. And now the Climate Emergency Committee is working on it again. So I don't know, like how is the conversation with the city going? How did it arrive that like you're working with the student groups on this? Can you just tell us a little more about that?
Well, that's part of the mobility topic, which is a big topic in the campus master plan, looking at circulation in general, the access points, and how we can minimize the presence of vehicular vehicles on both campuses, or apaiser la circulation, we say also, like making sure that it's safe for everybody to be around all the paths and all the streets. So the city is interested by this too, you know. They have a guide to improve pedestrianization, and they work on that as well. In the conversation for Sir George Williams campus with the city, what we understood is that they were focusing on the project on St. Catherine Street. So the infrastructure project is going to come all the way to Atwater.
This is like
so it started from Bleury and it's coming all the way from Atwater, and it'll come soon in front of our EV building, and the Faubourg building. So we really participated in their consultations about that project and tried to bridge, you know, our interests and our values, see how we could influence the proposal for this area, because it's going to evolve a little bit from east to west, depending on the context of the city. So they realize that in front of a university, maybe it's a little bit different than in front of commercial zones. So there was an intention of pedestrianizing a portion of the St. Catherine Street in front of our buildings, but it's very difficult to have a consensus on that with the whole community. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of pushback from the Association of Commercial...
like the Crescent Street Association? Or...
Not Crescent Street in particular, just l'Association des Commerçants de Montréal.
Oh, okay.
And they actually they had a lot of reserves on that, and the city actually backed away last week. So it was published in the
But that's for St. Catherine.
That's for St. Catherine. So it was disappointing to hear that. On the other hand, here we have exactly what you mentioned before. Some students in urban studies are going to propose an activity here on the 5th of May in the fourth space about reimagining Mackay. And Mackay Street was proposed many times. We had many proposals to pedestrianize a portion of it. And so, again, it's the public domain. It's not our street. It's the street that belongs to the city, and they have to do... We can make a proposal. They have actually a program for pedestrianization of streets at the city, and they have guidelines also. So it's possible to propose something, but it's and there are beautiful examples like La Rue du Musée in front of the Museum of
just up Sherbrooke
Fine Arts, or McTavish. There's different kinds of pedestrianization. You can do it like a more temporary solution that's seasonal, or you can do it with a really built-in infrastructure, and then that costs a lot of money. So the students are pushing their reflection, and we will also invite, I think they will invite a lot of people to participate, which is good.
Yeah, community organizers.
To see how people, but yeah, and then we'll see what the vision is, and then we'll try to push that idea again. It would be fantastic to have a pedestrian section on Mackay.
It would be lovely.
Or partially, or just increasing it can be seasonal too. It doesn't have to be all year round. But
well, and because that kind of leads you to, like, when I try to talk to you about biodiversity on the campus, the people who only know downtown think I'm crazy because they're just like, where are you going to do it? Like, where is the green space? And like, definitely rooftops are one, but like a project like that would increase our ability to have green spaces and have recreational spaces here.
It's small interventions, but it's still valuable. Again, I'm going to cite the example of the Musée des Beaux-Arts, who just partnered with le jardin botanique, les sciences, comment ça s'appelle, non?
Botanical Gardens.
Botanical Gardens. Anyways,
Mhm.
so they partnered with them to replace all the grass that was on their sculpture gardens on the street by a biodiversity garden.
Mhm.
And it becomes again, it's a showcase on biodiversity. It's not going to have a huge impact probably, but it's the impact is more on inspiring people to do this, so it becomes inspirational. I think we have the potential to do that in front of our annexes, and maybe it's not obviously in the actual, we always hear that we have constraints with our budgets, but sometimes it's little things, little steps at a time, and we can slowly transform those front yards into biodiversity gardens.
Great. Well, I think that's actually probably a pretty good place to leave it, because yeah. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, for anybody listening, you can get way more information. You can read the whole document online if you just look up Campus Master Plan at Concordia. As for the rest of the day, we will still be here. There's still food, I hope, at the back. And we have exhibitors here all day. So we have Cultivation is here with some plants and mushrooms. We have the Climate Emergency Committee is here with a biodiversity Jeopardy game. We have Nicole Yu with all kinds of stuff. You can learn about her balcony garden project. Finding Urban Nature is here. You can listen to bats. We have a whole game section where you can play invasive species versus native species version of checkers. I will challenge anyone in the room to a game. And behind me as well, we've got Mackenzie Guest is going to lead us through like a bird making workshop. It's part of a larger project to try and represent the number of bird deaths that happen on buildings all of the time. And it is pretty cool. And it's going to be very tactile. And you also get to talk to Mackenzie about her research that she's doing here on the campus. And then finally, we have Rosa over in the corner with us today, who has brought a wonderful display of creepy crawlies, insects, arthropods, snakes, even, not live ones. And she can teach you like how to take a look at those. They're beautiful, but also a little bit about how to use iNaturalist and get involved in the Campus Biodiversity Network. And as I said earlier, there's also, we didn't have room for all of our campus experts here. So there are people just walking around who have like a little butterfly or maybe a flower on them. They are roaming experts. So feel free to just walk up to them and talk. They know that they'll be expecting your questions. Great. Thank you so much again, Dominique. I hope you stick around for a while too.
Yeah, very tempting.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Dominique. Just let you know that those of you joining us on Zoom, we're going to be closing up the Zoom and the live stream now, but it remains available on our YouTube channel. You should revisit it. You can share it. Actually, it's a really nice thing to listen to while you look through the master plan, which is what I was doing over here. So I suggest everyone take a look at that. Okay, the rest of you, stick around. There's lots of great stuff happening here, and we might have a little bit of a live stream walk around to see some of the expos, so you could check our YouTube channel there for that. Okay, have a great afternoon.